If you think this is just another viral scandal, then stay with this until the very end, because what is unfolding behind the scenes is not just about a leaked audio. It is about a hidden trail that leads far beyond what anyone expected, and the moment Tan Songyun decided to step in, everything changed in a way no one saw coming, because what happened to Shen Yue was not random, it was designed, calculated, and now someone is about to uncover the truth no matter what it costs. The leak did not arrive with warning. It appeared quietly at first. A short clip, distorted enough to create confusion, clear enough to create damage. Within minutes, it began spreading. Not because it was confirmed, but because it was believable. And in an industry built on perception, believability is more powerful than truth. Shen Yue did not respond immediately. She could not. Because the moment something like that enters public space, every second of silence becomes part of the narrative. Fans were divided. Some defended her. Some questioned her. Others waited, watching carefully, trying to understand what felt off about the recording. Because something did feel off. Not obvious, but present. The tone, the timing, the way certain words connected. It sounded real, but it did not feel natural. And that difference is what caught Tan Songyun's attention. She was not supposed to be involved. There was no official reason for her to step in. But she knew Shen Yue well enough to recognize when something did not align. And once that doubt formed, it refused to disappear. Tan Songyun did not go public. She did not defend Shen Yue online. Instead, she moved quietly. Because finding the truth requires silence before exposure. The first step was the audio itself. Not what it said, but how it was structured. She replayed it repeatedly, not listening for meaning, but for pattern. Background noise that did not match the environment. Pauses that felt inserted rather than natural. Transitions that were too clean to be spontaneous. It was subtle, but it was there. And that was enough to confirm one thing. This was not a simple leak. This was an edit. Once that realization settled in, everything shifted. Because an edit means intention. And intention means someone planned this. Tan Songyun began tracing the file's origin. Not directly, because direct paths are always hidden. She followed the spread instead. Where it appeared first. Who shared it early. How it moved between circles. Patterns began forming quickly. Certain accounts amplified it faster than others. Certain groups pushed it with unusual coordination. Not random. Not organic. Structured. And structure always leads somewhere. The deeper she went, the more careful she had to be. Because whoever created this did not just edit audio. They understood timing. They understood impact. They understood how to create doubt without needing to prove anything. That kind of precision does not come from someone inexperienced. It comes from someone who knows exactly how the system works. And that realization made everything more dangerous. Because this was no longer just about clearing Shen Yue's name. It was about exposing someone who knew how to manipulate perception at a high level. Tan Songyun reached out to someone she trusted. Not to reveal everything, but to confirm technical details. The response came back simple. This was layered editing. Not just cutting and stitching, but restructuring. Meaning parts of different conversations had likely been combined to create a new narrative. That explained everything. The unnatural flow, the misplaced emphasis, the emotional tone that did not match the words. It was built, not recorded. And once you know something is built, you start asking who had the pieces to build it. That is when the trail narrowed. Not to one person yet, but to a specific circle. A group of individuals who had access, who had motive, who had the technical capability. Tan Songyun moved closer. Carefully, quietly, because the closer you get to the truth, the more visible you become. And visibility is risk. Meanwhile, Shen Yue remained silent publicly. But privately, she knew something was happening. Not because she had proof, but because Tan Songyun told her one thing. Trust me. That was enough. Because trust is what had been attacked in the first place. Days passed. The audio continued circulating. But something else started happening. Doubt began spreading. Small at first, then growing. People started questioning details, comparing clips, analyzing inconsistencies. The narrative was no longer stable. And once a narrative becomes unstable, it becomes vulnerable. That was the opening Tan Songyun needed. She found the link, not a direct confession, not a clear identity, but a connection strong enough to expose the structure behind the edit. A source point. Someone who did not create the audio, but handled it, distributed it, adjusted it for impact. And from that point, the rest could be traced. The confrontation had to happen. Not publicly. Not yet. Because exposure without proof only creates more noise. Tan Songyun chose the moment carefully. When everything aligned. When the pattern was clear. When the truth could no longer be dismissed. When she finally faced the person behind the distribution, there was no shouting. No dramatic accusations. Just evidence. Placed quietly, clearly, in a way that left no space for denial. The reaction was immediate, not defensive, but silent, because silence in that moment meant one thing: recognition. And recognition is confirmation. Outside, the situation began shifting again. New information surfaced, not from Tan Songyun directly, but from the ripple effect of what she uncovered. The narrative started correcting itself. Slowly. Not all at once, but enough. Enough for people to see what had been done. Enough for Shen Yue's position to stabilize. Enough for the truth to begin replacing doubt. Tan Songyun did not step forward to take credit. She did not reveal everything she knew, because this was never about attention. It was about restoring balance. And once balance is restored, the need for exposure changes. In the end, the mastermind was not fully revealed to the public. Not yet. But the system behind the manipulation was exposed enough to weaken it. And that changes everything. Because once people know something like this is possible, they start looking closer, questioning more, accepting less at face value. So what started as a malicious audio leak did not end as a scandal. It became a lesson, a shift, a reminder that not everything that sounds real is true. And not every silence means guilt. Stay with this because the story does not end here. It only reveals how deep the manipulation can go and how much more may still be hidden waiting to be uncovered. The moment doubt begins to spread, it does not move in straight lines. It grows in quiet directions, and if you stay with this until the very end, you will see how what Tan Songyun uncovered did not just weaken the narrative around Shen Yue. It forced something hidden to finally step into the light, even if it tried to remain unseen. At first, nothing dramatic happened. There was no sudden confession, no instant collapse of the story that had been built around the audio. But something more important began. The narrative started slipping, not falling apart, but losing its grip. People who once accepted the recording without question began to hesitate. They replayed it. They compared versions. They noticed differences they had ignored before. And once people begin questioning, the structure holding a lie together starts to weaken. Tan Songyun watched this carefully. She did not rush forward, because timing matters more than speed when truth is involved. She had already identified the distribution point, the person who handled the file after it was edited. But she was not interested in just exposing a middle link. She wanted the origin, the source. The one who understood not just how to edit, but how to weaponize information. And that kind of person does not make mistakes easily, which meant she had to create one. The plan was simple, but precise. She allowed a controlled piece of information to move outward. Something small, something that looked insignificant, but something only the original source would recognize as incomplete. Because incomplete information has a purpose. It invites correction. And correction reveals presence. Days passed. Then it happened. A subtle shift in the audio narrative online. A new version surfaced. Slightly adjusted. Slightly refined. Trying to fix the inconsistencies people had started noticing. But in doing so, it confirmed everything. Because only someone with access to the original edits would attempt to correct them. And now that person had moved. Tan Songyun followed the movement immediately. Tracing the update, tracking the timing, mapping the connections. And this time, the trail did not stop. It led further in, closer than before, to a name that had never appeared publicly in any part of this situation. Someone positioned behind the scenes. Not visible, not discussed, but connected to multiple moments that now aligned perfectly with what she had uncovered. The final confrontation was not loud. It did not happen in front of cameras. It did not need witnesses. Because truth does not require an audience to exist. When Tan Songyun finally faced the person behind the manipulation, there was no introduction. No explanation. Just the evidence. Layered. Clear. Impossible to dismiss. The silence that followed was heavier than anything else in this entire situation. Because silence in that moment meant acknowledgement. Not denial. Not confusion. Acknowledgement. The truth had reached its source. And the source had nothing left to hide behind. There was no dramatic confession. No public statement that tied everything together. Because people like that do not operate in ways that allow for clean endings. But something shifted. Quietly. Powerfully. The spread of the audio slowed. Then stopped evolving. No new versions. No new attempts to reinforce the narrative. Because the risk had changed. And when risk increases, control disappears. Outside, the public conversation reached a turning point. Not everyone agreed. Not everyone understood every detail. But enough people saw the inconsistencies. Enough people recognized the pattern. Enough people began to question what they had been told. And that was enough. Shen Yue did not speak immediately. She did not need to. Because the truth had already begun restoring what the leak tried to take from her. Not perfectly, not instantly, but steadily. And sometimes steady is stronger than sudden. When she finally appeared again, her presence was different. Not defensive, not reactive, but grounded. Because she knew something others were just beginning to realize. The narrative had changed. Tan Songyun stepped back again. Just like before. No claim. No spotlight. Because her role was never about being seen. It was about making sure the truth was. And now it was. Not completely. Not in a way that answered every question. But in a way that could not be erased. In the end, the mastermind was not publicly named. But their influence was weakened. Their method exposed. Their control disrupted. And that is sometimes more powerful than a direct reveal. Because it changes how people see everything that comes after. So what began as a malicious audio leak did not end as a scandal. It became a shift, a reminder that perception can be manipulated, but not permanently, that truth can be delayed, but not completely buried, and that sometimes the most powerful response is not immediate defense, but careful, patient exposure. Now the question is no longer who edited the audio. That part has already been uncovered. The real question is how many other stories have been shaped the same way without anyone noticing. And once you start asking that, everything begins to look different.